Listen, when humanity got invited to join the Galactic Coalition, we thought we'd made it. 5 years after discovering FTL travel, and suddenly we're rubbing shoulders with species that have been cruising around the cosmos for millennia. We got the fancy invitation, the welcome packet, the whole 9 yards. What they didn't mention in the brochure was that most of the galaxy thought we were basically hairless space monkeys who accidentally stumbled into the big kids club. Enter Lieutenant Marcus Webb, demolitions expert extraordinaire, who had the distinct honor of being one of the first humans assigned to Prometheus 7, the Coalition's elite military training station. Marcus was exactly the kind of guy you'd expect Earth to send. Mid-30s, built like someone who enjoyed carrying heavy things for fun, and possessing that special brand of confidence that comes from having blown up exactly the right things for the past 12 years. The morning Marcus arrived, Commander Vrel was having what could politely be called doubts. Vrel was Ktharan. Imagine if a praying mantis and a suit of armor had a baby, then gave that baby a military academy education and a permanent expression of disapproval. He stood in his office, reviewing Marcus's file on his datapad with all the enthusiasm of someone reading their own autopsy report. "Commander, the human has arrived for orientation," chirped Ensign Gorp, oozing through the doorway. Gorp was Quellian, which meant he looked like someone had given sentience to a very nervous puddle of lime gelatin. He wore a specialized containment suit that kept him roughly humanoid-shaped, though he tended to quiver when anxious. Which was always wonderful, Vrel clicked, his mandibles twitching. "Send him to briefing room 7? And Gorp? Try not to panic around the human. They can apparently smell fear. Is that true, sir?" "No idea, but I'm not taking chances." Marcus, meanwhile, was getting the grand tour from Captain Rex Kendo. A Saurian who looked like a velociraptor had hit the gym and then joined the military. Rax had that swagger that came from being excellent at his job and making sure everyone knew it. "So this is the decompression chamber," Rax hissed, gesturing toward a massive reinforced door. "We call it the Crucible. Every specialist runs drills here. Simulates hostile environment, work asteroid mining, hull repairs, combat engineering in vacuum-adjacent conditions. Think you fragile mammals can handle it?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "We literally invented a sport called cave diving where you swim through underwater tunnels with limited air for fun." "I think we'll manage." Rax's tail twitched with what might have been amusement. "I like you, human. You're either brave or stupid. Why not both? Even better. You're scheduled for your certification drill at 1400 hours. Don't die." The paperwork is horrible. The briefing room was exactly what you'd expect. Sterile, efficient, and filled with equipment designed for species that came in wildly different shapes and sizes. Commander Vrel stood at attention, flanked by Gorp, who was already quivering slightly. "Lieutenant Webb," Vrel began, his translator rendering his clicks and chittering into flat, formal English. "Welcome to Prometheus 7. Your certification drill will test your ability to operate in hostile environmental conditions. You will enter the chamber, complete a simulated asteroid mining operation including precision cutting and controlled demolition charges, and exit within the standard time frame. Any questions?" Marcus scanned the equipment laid out before him. Standard vac suit, portable oxygen, tools that looked both familiar and alien. "What's the failure rate?" Vrel's antennae twitched. "For humans? Unknown. You're the first. Then I guess I'm setting the curve." Gorp made a sound like bubbles popping. "The human is very confident, Commander. Confidence or delusion," Vrel muttered. "Time will tell." 1400 hours arrived with all the ceremony of an execution. Marcus stood in the prep area, suited up and running through his mental checklist. The vac suit fit reasonably well, though it was clearly designed for something with different proportions. The oxygen tank felt like probably some fancy alien tech that compressed more air into less space. Through the observation window, he could see the command crew assembling. Vrel stood rigid at the central console. Gorp nervously monitored the life support systems, and Rax lounged against the wall with the air of someone about to watch something entertaining. "Lieutenant Webb, comes check," Vrel's voice crackled through his helmet. "Loud and clear, Commander. You will have 30 minutes to complete the drill. Cutting through the simulated asteroid material, placing charges at designated points, and ensuring all safety protocols are observed. The environment will be hostile reduced oxygen, variable pressure, elevated carbon dioxide. Standard conditions for void-adjacent work." Marcus gave a thumbs up, a gesture that apparently translated across species because Vrel made an affirmative click. The airlock sealed behind him with a hiss that sounded expensive. Marcus entered the main chamber, a massive space filled with artificial rock formations, target markers, and enough simulation equipment to make a theme park jealous. He approached the first cutting station and activated his laser cutter. In the observation deck, Rax sidled up to Vrel. 20 credits says the mammal taps out in 15 minutes. Vrel's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. No bet. Their physiology data suggests extreme oxygen dependency. 15 minutes would be impressive. Gorp, meanwhile, was pulling up the drill parameters on his console. Initiating hostile environment protocol sequence Alpha 7-3. Setting atmospheric composition to standard specifications for... He paused, his gelatinous form rippling with concentration as he scrolled through species profiles. Tier 5 hostile environment simulation. He tapped the confirmation button. What Gorp didn't notice because he was nervous, because the interface was designed by committee, and because the universe has a sense of humor, was that he accidentally loaded the environmental profile for Ctharan respiratory requirements. Ctharans who breathed methane. Ctharans who considered oxygen a mild poison. The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed to life. Oxygen began dropping. Fast. Marcus, completely unaware that he was about to have a very bad day, focused on his work. The laser cutter sliced through the simulated asteroid material with satisfying precision. He'd done similar drills Earthside granted, with actual oxygen and muscle memory took over. Cut at the marked angle, check depth, move to the next point. His breathing was steady, controlled, efficient. In the observation deck, casual conversation continued. How long do humans typically survive without oxygen? Rax asked, more curious than concerned. Vrel consulted his datapad. According to their medical data, brain damage begins after approximately 4 minutes without oxygen. Death follows shortly after. Fragile, indeed. Below them, Marcus moved to the second station, completely in the zone. The work was actually kind of meditative, just him, the tools, and the satisfying sound of precision engineering. He noticed the air felt a bit thin, but figured that was part of the hostile environment simulation. He'd worked in worse conditions. That job in Denver had been at altitude. That cave rescue operation in Thailand had been legitimately oxygen deprived. This was just another Tuesday. Gorp, reviewing his monitoring data while simultaneously worrying about 17 different things, almost missed it. His eye spots swept across the atmospheric readout, then snapped back. Oxygen level, 3%. Oxygen level, 2%. Oxygen level, 1%. Every molecule of Gorp's gelatinous body tried to escape his containment suit simultaneously. Commander! His voice came out as a high-pitched warble. The oxygen is gone. Vrel's head snapped toward the console. What do you mean gone? I mean gone, sir. 0.8% and dropping. The human should be Gorp's eye spots focused on the observation window, where Marcus was calmly setting up his demolition charges. Why isn't he dead? Rax pushed away from the wall, his predator's instincts suddenly alert. How long has it been like this? 5 minutes, maybe 6. Gorp's form was actively trying to puddle despite the containment suit's best efforts. All 3 aliens stared through the observation window. Marcus, in an environment that should have killed him 4 minutes ago, was checking his work with the careful attention of someone who actually enjoyed quality craftsmanship. Commander Vrel's military training kicked in immediately. Gorp, restore oxygen to the chamber, now. Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Right away, sir. Gorp's appendages flew across the console in a blur of panicked gelatin. He tapped the emergency atmospheric restoration protocol. Nothing happened. He tapped it again. Still nothing. Commander, I think I locked myself out of the emergency override when I activated the simulation protocol. The temperature in the observation deck dropped approximately 20 degrees. And it had nothing to do with life support. Vrel's voice came out very quiet, very controlled, which anyone who'd served with him knew was infinitely more terrifying than shouting. Explain. The safety lockout prevents atmospheric changes during active simulations unless you have dual authorization, but I only have single authorization, so I need to bypass the safety protocol, which requires accessing the engineering subroutine, which means I need to... How long? 2 minutes. Maybe 3. Through the observation window, Marcus had moved on to phase 2 of the drill. He was placing shaped charges at precise intervals along the simulated asteroid material, each one positioned with the care of someone who understood that explosives were unforgiving critics of sloppy work. Rax's tail was rigid, his predator's focus locked on the human. This is impossible. Our medical data says, I can read the medical data, Rel snapped. The data is either wrong or that human is not actually human. He passed the biological screening, sir, Gorp offered weakly, still frantically working the console. DNA confirmed. Carbon-based, oxygen-dependent. Everything matched the human baseline. Inside the chamber, Marcus was definitely starting to notice something was off. The air had gone from thin to basically non-existent about 2 minutes ago. His lungs were burning, his vision was starting to get that sparkly quality around the edges, and he could feel his heartbeat in his teeth. But he'd also been in this exact situation before, free-diving off the coast of Indonesia. That cave system in Mexico where the guide's estimate of just another 100 meters had been wildly optimistic. That one extremely stupid bet with his dive instructor that he still couldn't believe he'd won. The trick was not to panic. Panic burned oxygen your body didn't have. Panic made you stupid. Panic got you killed. So Marcus did what Marcus always did in high-stress situations. He focused on the work. Each charge was calibrated to 1 gram precision. Each placement was checked twice. Each safety protocol was observed with the kind of attention that made demolitions experts live to retirement age. Besides, he figured this was probably part of the test. See how well the new guy performs under pressure. Well, joke's on them, Marcus Webb didn't know how to half-ass anything, including suffocating. In the observation deck, Gorp made a sound like a kettle achieving sentience and then immediately regretting it. Oxygen has been at 0.3% for 7 minutes. Commander, by every biological model we have, that humans should be clinically dead. Rel's mandibles were clicking rapidly, a Ctharan stress response. What is he doing? It looks like ... double quotes. Rax leaned closer to the window, his excellent predator vision picking up details. It looks like he's improving his work. He just recalibrated that charge. Nobody does that. You said it and move on. Maybe he's having brain death hallucinations? Gorp offered desperately. His movements are completely controlled, Vrel observed, his tactical analysis overriding his existential crisis. Look at his hands, steady, precise. That's not someone experiencing hypoxia. That's someone who single quotes s ... double quotes. He trailed off, unable to complete the thought because the thought was insane. Marcus, having finished the charge placements, decided to do a final safety sweep. He checked each explosive's proximity sensor, verified the wireless detonation network was operating on the correct frequency, and confirmed that all tools were properly secured. Then, because he had about 30 seconds left on the clock and he was already lightheaded enough that additional brain damage seemed unlikely, he organized his equipment into a neat line at the exit point. Organized. His equipment in 0 oxygen. After 7.5 minutes. Bypass complete. Gorp's triumphant warble could probably be heard on the next deck. Restoring oxygen now. The chamber's atmospheric processors reversed course with a hiss that sounded like the universe itself taking a relieved breath. Oxygen flooded back into the space, bringing the mixture back up to standard levels. Marcus, feeling the air return, took a deep, glorious breath. His vision cleared. The sparkly bits went away. His heartbeat retreated from his teeth to somewhere more anatomically appropriate. He stretched, working out the tension in his shoulders, then tapped his cum. Drill complete. All charges set, safety protocols observed, minimal material waste. Time check shows 28 minutes, 40 seconds. Pretty standard stuff. Ready for evaluation, Commander. The observation deck was silent enough to hear space itself. Marcus checked his cum, tapped it twice. Hello? Is this thing working? Commander Vrel? More silence. The kind of silence that usually preceded either very good news or very bad news. And Marcus was getting a sinking feeling about which one this was. Finally, Vrel's voice came through, sounding like someone who just watched their understanding of reality get mugged in a dark alley. Lieutenant Webb, please exit the chamber and report to the medical bay immediately. Marcus frowned inside his helmet. Sir, I feel fine. Did I do something wrong with the drill? Was I supposed to use a different cutting pattern for the medical bay? Now, that's an order. The walk to the medical bay had the surreal quality of a fever dream. Marcus passed 3 different species in the corridor, and every single one of them stopped, stared, and then hastily made room. One of them, a Vrelian who looked like a spacefaring starfish, actually pressed himself against the wall and made a sign that was probably either religious or deeply offensive. The medical bay doors opened with a hiss, revealing what looked like every doctor on the station had shown up for the show. There was a Cthuran medical officer with additional antenna that apparently meant doctor, a floating gaseous entity that Marcus really hoped was qualified for this, and a small purple creature that looked like a very judgmental potato. Lieutenant Webb, the Cthuran doctor clicked, gesturing to an examination table with one bladed arm. Please sit. We need to run some scans. Look, I know I probably should have mentioned this before the drill, but I'm actually cleared for 3 different scanning devices activated simultaneously. Marcus found himself bathed in lights that ranged from slightly concerning to definitely not UV safe. The doctors huddled around their displays, making sounds that ranged from confused chittering to what might have been gaseous cursing. Commander Vrel entered, flanked by Gorp and Rax. Vrel's mandibles were doing that clicking thing that suggested he was either very stressed or about to molt, and Marcus really hoped it was the stress option. Lieutenant Webb, Vrel began, with the careful tone of someone explaining to a child that their pet goldfish had gone to live on a farm. There was an incident during your drill. Sir? The atmospheric systems malfunctioned. Specifically, the oxygen levels dropped to near zero for approximately 8 minutes. Marcus blinked. Oh, yeah, I noticed it getting a bit thin around minute 4, but I figured that was part of the test. Hostile environment simulation and all. He shrugged. I've held my breath longer during cave diving back home. Once did 12 minutes on a bet. The medical bay achieved a level of silence, previously thought to violate thermodynamics. The potato-looking doctor spoke up, their translator rendering their voice as a prim British accent. I'm sorry, did you say 12 minutes? Well, I passed out after 11, but my buddy said I hit 12 before he dragged me up. Does that count? I mean, technically I was breathing water at that point, but you were breathing water? Gorp's entire body rippled with horrified fascination. No, I was drowning. Different thing. Really don't recommend it. The coughing afterward is terrible. Marcus looked around at the assembled medical staff. Is this about liability? Because I signed like 40 waivers when I joined, so. The Cthuran doctor made a sound like metal grinding. Lieutenant, the issue is not legal. The issue is biological. You should be dead. Multiple times over. Your species' own medical data indicates brain death after 4 minutes without oxygen. Oh, that. Marcus waved dismissively. Yeah, that's average. Plenty of humans can go longer. Free divers, pearl divers, that one guy who got trapped under a frozen lake in Norway for like 20 minutes and survived. We're pretty good at the whole not breathing thing when we need to be. Rax, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, finally spoke. You're telling me that humans can just choose not to breathe for extended periods? I mean, it's not comfortable. And you have to train for it. But yeah, basically. Marcus tilted his head. Wait, can't most species do that? Nitrogen monoxide. This came from multiple doctors simultaneously. The gaseous doctor floated closer, their forms swirling with what might have been scientific curiosity. Most species have emergency oxygen storage mechanisms, but nothing like what you're describing. The Quellians can absorb ambient gases through their skin for maybe 2 additional minutes. The Saurians have secondary respiratory sacs for perhaps 90 seconds, but 8 minutes? While performing complex tasks. Is that impressive? Marcus asked. Because honestly, it felt pretty rough. I wouldn't want to make a habit of it. Commander Vrel made that grinding sound again. Marcus was starting to recognize it as the Cthuran equivalent of a stress migraine. Lieutenant Webb, you completed a Tier 5 hostile environment drill, a drill designed to challenge veteran specialists with effectively 0 oxygen. You not only survived, you exceeded performance standards. You then organized your equipment. Well, yeah, I had time left on the clock, and you organized your equipment. Is that bad? Vrel pulled up his datapad, his appendages moving with the sharp, precise movements of someone barely maintaining composure. Let me read you the performance statistics. Average completion time for this drill, 37 minutes. Your time, 28 minutes, 40 seconds. Average accuracy on charge placement, 83%. Your accuracy, 97%. Average material waste, 12%. Your waste, 4%. He looked up. You set 3 new station records while suffocating. Marcus brightened. So I passed? The grinding sound intensified. Gorp made a noise like bubble wrap being systematically destroyed. Rax's tail was twitching so hard it looked like it might achieve independent sentience. Passed? Rel's translator somehow managed to convey the impression of someone laughing hysterically inside while maintaining perfect professional monotone outside. You passed? Lieutenant, you didn't just pass. You completed what was accidentally the most difficult version of this drill that anyone has ever survived. And you did it like you were assembling furniture on a lazy afternoon. Oh, Marcus considered this. Cool. So what's the advanced course look like? Every being in the medical bay across multiple species and body types managed to simultaneously convey the expression of someone watching a disaster approach in slow motion while being powerless to stop it. The medical examination continued for another 2 hours, during which Marcus was scanned, prodded, sampled, and subjected to approximately 17 different tests that he was pretty sure violated at least 3 provisions of the Geneva Convention. The doctors kept muttering things like, impossible thoracic capacity and, what do you mean you can override your autonomic breathing response and these lung measurements cut and be right? Run it again. Finally, the Ctheran doctor approached with a datapad, looking like someone who de-spent their entire career believing in objective reality only to have it replaced with something that made significantly less sense. Lieutenant Webb, your physical examination is ... complete. You are, against all probability, in perfect health. Better than perfect, actually. Your oxygen saturation levels rebounded completely. There's no sign of cellular damage. And your neural activity suggests you suffered exactly 0 cognitive impairment from the incident. That's good, right? It's baffling, but yes, good. The doctor's antennae drooped in what might have been exhaustion or existential defeat. You're cleared to return to duty. Marcus stood, stretching. Great, so when's the next not-so-fast lieutenant? Commander Vrel entered, and his posture suggested this was the official business version of Vrel rather than the existential crisis version. We need to discuss what happened today. The drill? The incident. Vrel gestured for Marcus to follow him to a private consultation room. Once inside, the commander settled into a chair designed for his species' proportions and fixed Marcus with what was probably meant to be an intimidating stare. It was somewhat undercut by the fact that Marcus had recently survived something that should have been lethal, which made regular intimidation feel quaint. Lieutenant, Ensign Gorp's error nearly killed you. Through a combination of interface design flaws, procedural oversight, and catastrophically bad luck, you were subjected to an environment that should have been lethal. We're filing 17 separate incident reports. There will be an investigation. Gorp is probably going to be reassigned to data entry for the next decade. Marcus held up a hand. Sir, with respect, I don't think that's necessary. I mean, yeah, it was rough, but I'm fine. And honestly, he grinned, it was kinda cool. How many people can say they set station records by accident? Vrel's mandibles clicked slowly. You're not angry? Traumatized? Preparing to sue the coalition for emotional distress? Why would I be angry? You guys gave me a challenge. I completed the challenge. That's literally what I'm here for. Marcus leaned forward. Look, Commander, I get that by your standards, what happened was a catastrophic failure. But by human standards? That's just Tuesday. We read the species that invented free solo climbing, that scaling cliffs with no safety equipment just to see if we can. We invented a sport called bull riding where you climb on top of an angry half-ton animal and try to stay there. We go into caves for fun. We jump out of perfectly functional aircraft for entertainment. Vrel searched for words. That's insanity. Yeah, probably. But it's our insanity, and we're pretty good at it, Marcus shrugged. The way I see it, you guys accidentally gave me the advanced version of the test. I passed. Let's call it a win and move on. Vrel was quiet for a long moment, his antennae twitching in what might have been thought or might have been a stress response. Finally, the coalition has significantly underestimated your species, Lieutenant. Most people do. We're used to it. I'm submitting a formal request to Galactic Command to revise all human capability assessments. Your species file lists you as fragile, oxygen-dependent, prone to environmental vulnerability. I'm adding an addendum, significantly more durable than previous estimates suggest, possibly insane. Recommend caution when designing training protocols. Marcus laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. It's meant as a warning. Vrel stood, his exoskeleton creaking slightly. But there is one more matter to discuss, sir. Your performance today, accident or not, qualifies you for advanced placement. I'm assigning you to the Advanced Hostile Environment Specialist program. It's designed for species that can survive hard vacuum exposure, extreme radiation, and prolonged periods in hostile conditions. He paused. Traditionally, humans have not been considered eligible. Marcus felt that familiar thrill of a new challenge. That sounds dangerous. It's designed for species like the Ctharan, who can survive brief vacuum exposure, or the Saurians, who have radiation-resistant biology, or the... Vrel stopped. You're excited, aren't you? Can't wait. That grinding sound returned. Of course you can't. Report to Advanced Training Base 7 at 0800 tomorrow. And Lieutenant? Please try not to accidentally break any more impossibility records. The paperwork is becoming excessive. No promises, sir. Word spread through Prometheus 7 with the speed and enthusiasm of particularly motivated gossip. By dinner time, everyone on the station knew about the human who can't die. By breakfast the next morning, the story had evolved into the human who laughs at vacuum. By lunch, at least 3 different species had asked Marcus for his autograph. Marcus, for his part, found the whole thing hilarious and slightly embarrassing. He was just trying to grab a nutritional synthesizer meal when a group of Quellian engineers literally parted around him like gelatinous water, their eye spots wide with something between awe and terror. Hi, Marcus offered. They scattered. Ensign Gorp, meanwhile, was having the worst week of his life. He'd been formally reprimanded, mildly, because the investigation determined the interface design was partly to blame. Reassigned to additional safety training, extensively, and developed what could only be described as acute anxiety whenever Marcus was in visual range. Marcus found him in the engineering bay, quivering behind a console. Hey Gorp, you got a minute? The sound Gorp made was like Bubbles screaming. Lieutenant, I'm so sorry, I nearly killed you. I locked myself out of the override. I violated 7 safety protocols. Jude, relax. I'm fine. Better than fine, I got advanced placement out of it. Marcus pulled up a chair. Actually, I wanted to thank you. Gorp's form went completely still, which for a Quellian was roughly equivalent to a record scratch moment. Thank me? Yeah. That drill was genuinely challenging. Most of my training Earthside has been pretty routine. It's nice to feel like I'm actually being tested, you know? Marcus grinned. Plus, now I know I can work for 8 minutes without air if I have to. That's a useful data point. You're not angry? Why would I be angry? Mistakes happen? The important thing is nobody died. We learned something, and we make sure it doesn't happen again. Marcus stood. Seriously, man, let it go. We're cool. Gorp watched the human leave, his gelatinous form rippling with emotion. Later, he would tell other Quellians that humans were either the most forgiving species in the galaxy or completely detached from reality. Possibly both. In the station's recreation area, Captain Rax Kendo was holding court with a group of specialists from various species. I'm telling you, I watched it happen. 0 oxygen. 0. For 8 minutes. And this crazy primate just kept working like he was assembling a bookshelf. A Vrelian officer leaned in. I heard he organized his equipment. He did. After completing the drill ahead of schedule. Who does that? Humans, apparently, someone muttered. Rax's tail swished enthusiastically. I've been in the Coalition military for 20 years. I've seen Ctharan commandos survive brief vacuum exposure. I've watched Saurians tank radiation that would cook other species. But I've never seen anything like that human. He paused for effect. And you know what the best part is? When they told him what happened, he asked what the advanced course looked like. The assembled group made various sounds of disbelief across multiple languages and physiology types. Did you hear Command is revising the entire human capability assessment? A Ctharan specialist added. Apparently we've been drastically underestimating them. Maybe they're all like that, someone suggested. Terrifying thought, Rax said, but he was grinning. He'd lost 20 credits on his bet. But he'd gained something more valuable. A story that would make him popular at every military bar in the galaxy for years to come. In his office, Commander Vrel was drafting his report to Galactic Command. He'd been working on it for 3 hours, and he still wasn't satisfied. How did you explain to your superiors that their entire understanding of a species was fundamentally flawed? His first draft had been too technical. His second too emotional. His third had accidentally turned into a philosophical treatise on the nature of possibility. He was now on Draft 4, which read, to Galactic Command, Coalition Military Division, Human Species Capability Reassessment, SIRS. Following Incident Report GCP-72547, I formally request immediate revision of all human baseline capability assessments. Previous documentation lists humans as fragile, oxygen-dependent, and environmentally vulnerable. Recent events suggest this classification is dangerously incomplete. Humans possess several biological capabilities not previously documented. Extended breath-holding capacity exceeding 8 minutes while performing complex tasks, rapid recovery from severe hypoxia with no lasting damage, and psychological resilience to life-threatening situations that borders on the pathological. Recommendation: approve human integration into all coalition training programs, including those previously considered incompatible with human physiology. Secondary recommendation: design training protocols with human capabilities in mind rather than assuming limitation. Tertiary recommendation: never, under any circumstances, tell humans something is impossible. They appear to interpret impossibility as a personal challenge. He paused, mandibles clicking. Then he added one final line. Additional note: request hazard pay increase for command staff assigned to human integration programs. He sent the report and leaned back in his chair, already anticipating the responses. There would be skepticism, demands for more data, probably an investigation into whether he'd suffered some kind of stress-induced breakdown. Let them investigate. He'd watched the footage 17 times. He had the medical data. He had a human on his station who casually survived something that should have killed him and then asked for a bigger challenge. The galaxy was going to have to adjust its expectations. Humans weren't the fragile newcomers everyone assumed. There was something else entirely. Something resilient, adaptable, and apparently too stubborn to die when they really should. Vrel pulled up Earth's file on his datapad one more time, reading through humanity's history with fresh eyes. Persistence hunting chasing prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. High-altitude civilizations thriving in air that would leave other species gasping. Free-diving cultures that made a lifestyle of holding their breath. Extreme sports invented purely because normal life wasn't dangerous enough. There was a pattern there. Humans didn't just survive hostile environments, they sought them out. They turned survival into sport. They took impossibility as invitation, and now they were in the coalition, with access to advanced technology and military training, and a whole galaxy of new challenges to tackle. Vrel closed the file and made a note to invest in stress relief medication. He had a feeling he was going to need it. Meanwhile, in Training Bay 7, Marcus was reviewing the curriculum for the Advanced Hostile Environment Specialist Program, Vacuum Exposure Training, Radiation Resistance Protocols, Extreme Temperature Survival. The recommended prerequisite was 5 years of standard hostile environment certification. He grinned. This was going to be fun. A maintenance worker, a species Marcus didn't recognize. Something with too many arms and crystalline skin drifted past. Noticed him reading the HFY program materials and made a sound like wind chimes in a hurricane. You're that human. The one who survived the oxygen incident. Guilty. I heard you're joining the HFY program. Yeah, it starts tomorrow. The crystalline being's arms waved in what might have been agitation or respect. That program has a 40% injury rate. 15% permanent disability. 3% fatality. Marcus looked up from his datapad. So you're saying 97% of people survive? Yes, technically, but sounds like pretty good odds to me. The maintenance worker made that wind chime sound again and floated away quickly, muttering something in their native language that the translator rendered as humans are broken. Marcus chuckled and went back to his reading. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. The HFY program included something called the Thermal Gauntlet, which involved exposure to temperatures ranging from near absolute zero to hot enough to melt most metals. There was also vacuum chamber evolution training, which sounded both ominous and exciting. His comm chimed. A message from Gorp. Lieutenant Webb, I calculated the odds of surviving what you survived during the drill. The number was so small my computer thought it was a rounding error. Just thought you should know. Also, please never use the equipment I'm responsible for ever again. My cardiac equivalent organ can't handle it. Marcus sent back a thumbs-up emoji, which he was pretty sure would just confuse Gorp more. Another message, this time from Rax, Human, Rec Room. 2000 hours. I'm telling the oxygen story again, and someone bet me I was exaggerating. You're my proof. Also, you're buying drinks. You owe me 20 credits, Marcus grinned and confirmed. He'd lost Rax that bet, sure, but he'd also apparently become a legend in the process. That seemed like a fair trade. A third message appeared, this one from Commander Vrel, Lieutenant Webb. Report to my office at 0700 tomorrow before your AHE program begins. I'm assigning you a monitoring device. It tracks vital signs, environmental exposure, and has an emergency beacon. You will wear it at all times during training. This is not optional. I refuse to have another incident where you nearly die and nobody notices because you read too competent to complain. Marcus sent back. Acknowledged, sir. Question. Does the monitoring device have a maximum threshold, or am I going to keep setting off alarms? Vrel's response took 3 minutes. We're calibrating it specifically for human physiology. Assuming your performance today wasn't an anomaly, the threshold should accommodate your species' apparent disregard for biological limitations. Try not to break it. Marcus laughed and pocketed his cum. He spent the rest of the evening reviewing training materials, doing some light exercise in the gym, where 3 different species stopped their workouts to stare at him, and generally preparing for whatever fresh hell the advanced hostile environment program had in store. Around 2000 hours, he headed to the rec room. Rax was already there, surrounded by an audience of at least 15 different beings, his tail swishing dramatically as he recounted the story. And then the alarms start going off, right? Gorp's having a complete gelatinous meltdown. Rel's mandibles are clicking like a tap-dancing convention. And through the window, we can see the human, just working, like he's building furniture. The crowd made various sounds of amazement. 47 seconds. Rax continued, spotting Marcus and waving him over. He had 47 seconds left when we restored oxygen, and what does he do? He organizes his tools, because apparently humans think tidiness is more important than consciousness. Marcus slid into the group, and several beings immediately shifted to give him space, not out of rudeness but out of what appeared to be genuine awe mixed with healthy self-preservation instinct. Tell them, Rax demanded. Tell them about the 12 minutes. Oh, that wasn't even impressive by human standards, Marcus said, which caused the Vrelian in the back to make a choking sound. There's this guy, Budimir Zobat, held his breath for 24 minutes and 33 seconds. Just sat in a pool, not breathing, for half an hour basically. World record. The rec room went silent. Your species has records for this? Someone finally asked. Oh yeah, we keep records for everything. Longest time holding breath, highest altitude climbed without oxygen, deepest free dive, longest survival in extreme cold. We're really into pushing limits. Marcus shrugged. It's kind of our thing. A small purple being that looked like an ambulatory eggplant spoke up in a reedy voice. But why? What's the evolutionary advantage of being able to not breathe for extended periods? Persistence hunting, probably. Our ancestors would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, in extreme heat with limited water. We evolved to just keep going when other species would give up or die. It's not that we're tougher than everyone else, we're just too stubborn to quit. That's the same thing, the eggplant protested. Is it though? Marcus grinned. Rax slapped him on the back with enough force to stagger a Saurian, but Marcus barely moved. This is my new favorite human. Possibly my favorite being. Command wanted me to file a report on whether humans should be restricted from certain training programs due to concerning risk-taking behavior. You know what I wrote? What? Humans should be encouraged to attempt any training program. Their failure rate will be significantly lower than predicted, and watching them succeed at impossible tasks is excellent for station morale. Rax's teeth showed in what passed for a Saurian smile. It's the only time I've ever gotten a response that was just question marks. 12 question marks. In a row. The evening continued with more stories, more disbelief, and more instances of Marcus accidentally terrifying other species by casually mentioning things humans did for fun. By the time he returned to his quarters, he'd been invited to join 3 different training cohorts offered a spot on someone's racing team. Apparently void racing was a thing, and been asked to give a presentation on human survival techniques by the station's xenobiology department. He fell asleep grinning, already dreaming of tomorrow's challenges. At 0700 the next morning, Marcus stood in commander. Vrel's office, while a technician fitted him with what looked like a watch, but was apparently sophisticated enough to monitor about 40 different biological functions. This device, the technician explained in a chittering voice, will monitor your vital signs: environmental exposure, oxygen levels, radiation absorption, temperature variations, and cardiac function. If any reading reaches critical levels, it will alert Station Medical automatically. Define critical, Marcus said. The technician consulted their datapad. For humans, based on standard physiological data, oxygen saturation below 85%, heart rate above 180, core temperature above 40 Celsius or below 35, radiation exposure above. Yeah, those thresholds are going to need adjustment, Marcus interrupted. My resting heart rate is 55, but it hits 200 during hard exercise. I've worked in 45-degree heat. And the oxygen thing, well, we covered that yesterday. The technician looked at Vrel helplessly. Vrel's mandibles clicked in what Marcus was learning to recognize as resignation. Adjust all thresholds upward by 30%. If the human dies, we'll know the limits were insufficient. That's a terrible scientific method, the technician protested. Do you have a better suggestion? Silence. Thresholds adjusted, the technician muttered, making changes on their datapad. Though I'm noting in the file that this violates standard safety protocols. Note away, Vrel said. He turned to Marcus. Lieutenant, your AHA program begins in 20 minutes. Instructors have been briefed on yesterday's incident and have been asked to adjust their expectations accordingly. Adjust them how? They've been instructed not to assume you re-dead unless they can confirm a lack of vital signs for at least 10 minutes. Marcus snorted. That's probably excessive. Yesterday you survived 8 minutes without oxygen while performing complex tasks. I'm not taking chances. Vrel pulled up his datapad. The AA program is designed to push specialists to their absolute limits. It's not meant to be comfortable. Or particularly safe. The injury rate is 40%. Yeah, I heard. 15% permanent disability, 3% fatality. Marcus's eyes lit up. When do we start? That grinding sound was becoming almost musical. Training Bay 7. Don't die. If you do die, please do it somewhere with good documentation so we can at least learn something from it. You're a real optimist. Sir, I'm a realist who's watched you treat near death as a minor inconvenience. Go. Before I reconsider this entire program, Marcus saluted and headed out, passing Gorp in the hallway. The Quellion immediately plastered himself against the wall, quivering. Morning, Gorp. The sound that emerged was like carbonated despair. Training Bay 7 was significantly more intimidating than the standard facilities. It looked less like a training area and more like a torture chamber designed by engineers with too much budget and not enough ethics oversight. There was a chamber that was literally just a vacuum tube. Another section that appeared to be bathed in radiation indicators. A third area that was frosted over with ice while simultaneously showing heat shimmer in the air. Standing in the center of it all was the AHE program instructor, a being that looked like someone had given a boulder both sentience and military rank. They were Craglite, a species that could survive direct vacuum exposure for up to 30 minutes and considered harsh environment to be their comfortable baseline. Your web, the instructor rumbled, their voice like grinding tectonic plates. Yes, sir. I'm Instructor Kragor. I've trained AA specialists for 20 years. I've seen the toughest, most resilient beings in the galaxy. I've watched Catherian commandos quit. I've had Saurian veterans beg for mercy. I've made Vrelian shock troopers cry. Kragor's rocky face somehow conveyed a smile. I read your file from yesterday. You're either the most durable human in existence or the luckiest idiot in the galaxy. Why not both? I like you already. Let's see if you survive the week. Kragor gestured to the vacuum chamber. First exercise, vacuum exposure evolution. You'll be exposed to progressively decreasing pressure over 30 minutes. Most species tap out around 20 minutes when the pressure drops below survivable levels. Standard safety protocols apply. You feel consciousness fading, you signal, we extract you, no shame in it. Marcus studied the chamber. What's the record? 27 minutes, held by a Catherian commando. But they were unconscious for the last 3 and required medical intervention afterward. Kragor's expression became serious. This isn't a competition, Webb. This is about understanding your limits. There's no prize for dying. Understood, sir. When do we start? Now. The vacuum chamber was exactly as unpleasant as advertised. Marcus sealed himself in. The door hissed shut, and the pressure started dropping. His ears popped. His sinuses protested. His lungs had opinions about the changing environment, and none of them were positive. But Marcus had been in pressure situations before. Diving deep enough that the ocean tried to compress you into a human-shaped diamond. Flying in unpressurized aircraft at altitude. That one time in Tibet when he de-hiked to a monastery at elevation and spent 3 days feeling like he was breathing through a straw. This was educational. At 15 minutes, the pressure dropped low enough that water would boil. Marcus could feel his body trying to figure out what was happening. His heart rate increased. The monitoring device would be registering that. His breathing became more deliberate, more controlled. At 20 minutes, the pressure was approaching hard vacuum. This was genuinely dangerous territory. Marcus's vision started to tunnel slightly. His extremities felt cold. But he was still conscious, still aware. Still, the chamber door opened. Atmosphere rushed back in. Marcus blinked, disoriented. What happened? Did I pass out? Instructor Kragor was staring at his monitoring display. You were conscious at 27 minutes. Conscious and showing stable vitals at 28 minutes. At 29 minutes, I terminated the exercise because you broke in the station record, and I'm not actually trying to kill you on day one. Oh, Marcus stepped out of the chamber, stretching. So did I pass? Kragor made a sound like a rock slide. Webb, you just broke a record that stood for 8 years. Held by a species literally evolved for vacuum exposure. And you're asking if you passed? Well, I didn't make it to 30 minutes. Because I stopped the exercise. So. Extra credit? The sound Kragor made was probably laughter, probably. It was hard to tell with Kraglights. You humans are insane, absolutely insane. I love it. Next exercise, thermal endurance. Hope you like temperature swings. By the end of the day, Marcus had broken 3 more station records accidentally given. Instructor Kragor what passed for a Kraglite existential crisis and confirmed that humans were apparently built different in ways the galaxy was still figuring out. As he limped back to his quarters because even he had limits, and today had found several of them, his cum chimed. Message from Vrel. Your monitoring device triggered 17 alarms today. Medical review determined 16 were due to you exceeding normal thresholds while remaining functional. The 17th was because you were humming during the radiation exposure test, and the device thought you were having a seizure. Adjusting parameters again. Try not to break physics tomorrow. Message from Rax. I heard you broke 4 records. 4. In 1 day. I'm buying you drinks. You're my favorite human. Possibly my favorite being in the galaxy. Message from Gorp. Please stop being amazing. You're making the rest of us look bad. Also, I'm having nightmares about you. Please stop featuring in my nightmares. Marcus grinned, sent appropriate responses, and collapsed into his bunk. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The program was going to push him harder than anything he'd done before. He couldn't wait.